He's gonna give us two for the price of one, you guys. We get two performances from Mr. Stine, RL as I call him, but Mr. Stine to you. He's going to tell a story he wrote specifically for Twitter, and then as the bonus, he's going to do a ghost story for us, which is basically like Elvis coming back from the grave and singing Love Me Tender. That's what I feel is about to happen with R.L. Stine and his ghost story for us that he will do in collaboration with the live illustrationist Michael Arthur. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for R.L. Stine.
Thank you. Thank you very back from the dead? What? What was that? I don't know. I'll tell you, this is why I'm especially glad to be here tonight. I did a book signing a couple weeks ago here in New York, and a librarian came up to the table and she said, "Can I have my picture taken with you? The kids all think you're dead." It didn't quite make actually, I'm having a really bad night. This woman stopped me. I was coming into the theater, and a woman stopped me out in the lobby, and she said, "Did anyone ever tell you you look a lot like R.L. Stine? No offense." She said, "No offense." Cody, while I was sitting over there watching the others, somebody actually tweeted, "The pianist looks a lot like R.L. Stine," which is, that's my I don't know. That's he's my nephew. He's just here. Yeah, he's the talented one in the family. Really, every once in a while, I set like a challenge for myself and see if I can write a story live on Twitter and just sit down and start to write it. And this is one I did about a month ago. I'm just going to read it. My wife Jane and I went to the Living Plankton exhibit at the Earth Sciences Museum downtown. A strange thing happened. The plants were in tall glass tanks filled with water. Some of the plants were thick as curtains and blocked the light. The pale green plants curled and pulsed inside the glass. Moving in the water, they certainly seemed alive. I stopped in front of a tank where a man appeared to be feeding the plants. As I came closer, I received a shock. It wasn't a man in the tank, it was a large glob of plankton, shaped like a man. Its arms and legs moved in the water. It appeared to stand upright. It had no bones. It was all leaf and tendril. It turned, and I saw that it had a head. The green pulsing head had no eyes, no nose, but as I stared through the glass, I saw it open, a wet green mouth, and it mouthed the words, "Help me." I froze in horror as it leaped from the tank. Slimy, wet, it wrapped itself over me. The plant wrapped itself around me like a blanket over my head. It tried to smother me. I struggled, but it was too strong to push away. I saw the museum guard come running with a broom. He began to beat the plant creature with the broom handle. Smack, smack, smack. He beat the plant. Furiously pounded the plant with the broom till it rolled off me. It curled into a loose ball and didn't move. The guard saved my life. At home that night, I found some sticky globs of green stuck to my shoes. I did my best to wipe them off, but later I saw patches of pale green sprouting on one ankle. I went to bed thinking it would come off in my morning shower, but I awoke with a thick green cover over my foot. It looks like I'm wearing a leafy sock, and it's sprouting on my other foot. My wife thinks I should go to the doctor, but I think it'll go away in a few days, don't you? That's the story. Thank you. Since I write so many ghost stories, people always ask me, "Have you ever seen a ghost?" And I'm not really sure if I have. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to my brother Bill and me back when we were kids, and it's a true story. and maybe you can decide if we saw a ghost or not. Bill and I grew up in a small community in Columbus, Ohio. And a couple blocks away from us, when we were kids, lived our cousin Stanley. And we hated Stanley. We hated him. He was a mean guy. My family was very poor, and Bill and I had to wear Stanley's old clothes to school. And Stanley was really terrible about it. He'd say, "That shirt looked a lot better on me." Or, "Those pants look great on me. You look like Bozo the Clown." And we hated that. We hated it. And the other thing we hated about Stanley is that he was always trying to scare us. He would jump out of closets. He would hide under our beds. He would climb through a window. He would do anything to make us scream. And Bill and I had one dream in life, and that was to scare Stanley. And one day, I figured out how to do it. It's sort of sad. There was an old man who lived 2 houses down from me. His name was Mr. Williams, and he died. He'd been sick for a long time, and he was very old, and he died. And a couple days later, I was walking to school in the morning, and I saw that Mr. Williams' front door was open. And I thought, oh no, somebody must have left his door open. So I went over to close the door for him, and I walked up on his front stoop. And I thought, well, since I'm here, maybe I'll just take a look inside his house. I'll just look around for a few minutes. So I went into the house, and it was cold in there. The heat wasn't on. And the only light, there was no light on, there was some morning red sunlight coming through the front window. And I looked around, and everything was there. The furniture was still there. Everything was still in place. It was silent. And I walked down the back hall, and I looked in his bedroom, and that's where I had the idea on how we were going to scare Stanley. And I told it to my brother later that afternoon. I said, "Listen, Bill, you know Stanley's coming for dinner tomorrow night, and you know he's scared of ghosts, right? This is what we're going to do. You sneak over to Mr. Williams' house right after dinner, go into Mr. Williams' bedroom, climb under the covers, cover yourself up completely, and then I'm going to dare Stanley and say, 'I bet you won't go into a dead man's house.' And of course, he will. And I'll bring him over to Mr. Williams' house, and I'll lead him into the bedroom. And when we get in there, you slowly, slowly sit up under the covers and say, 'Get out of my house.' And we'll terrify him. I know this will work." And Bill said, "This is a great idea. I love it. The only problem is I have a trombone lesson tomorrow." My brother, he played trombone, but he had very short arms. He was short. He couldn't play any low notes. He could only play high notes, but he still carried the trombone around. I said, "Bill, don't worry about it. I'll keep Stanley at the house really late, and I'll bring him over and give you plenty of time to get into Mr. Williams' bed." And this is exactly what we did. The next day, Stanley came for dinner, and we had a long dinner, and then we played some games or something. I kept him at the house after dinner, and then I said, "Stanley, I'll bet you're too scared to go to a dead man's house." And he said, "No way. No, I'm not. Are you kidding? Lead the way." So we went outside. I remember it was a cold October night. The ground was all crunchy hard from the frost. There was just a little sliver of a moon. Everything was all silver, very eerie. And I took him to Mr. Williams' house, and we stepped into the dark living room, and there's just that little bit of moonlight coming into the living room. I remember it so clearly. And I said, "Stanley, I'll bet you're scared to go into a dead man's bedroom." And he said, "No, I'm not. Come on, let's go." So I led him into Mr. Williams' bedroom, and we stepped in, and I could see my brother under. I could see the lump. I could see under the covers. And slowly he started to sit up. Slowly he started to sit up, and he yelled, "Get out of my house!" And Stanley's eyes popped open, and his mouth dropped, and he let out a squeak. He couldn't even scream. He was so scared, he just squeaked. And he turned, he was terrified, and he ran out of the room and ran to the front of the house. And I thought, we did it, it was great. And he pushed open the front door and ran out to the street. And then I went to the front door, and I could hear him screaming. I could see him all down the block, screaming his head off. We did it, I was so happy. And then I saw my brother walking up the driveway, carrying his trombone case, and he said, "Am I too late to scare Stanley?" That's my true ghost story. Thank you very much. Thank you.